Good day to you. Kevin McCullough coming to you live from New York City, where we are watching all things related to the American family and looking out for the truth in the stories that are being told. Earlier today, not that many minutes ago, actually, the President of the United States was before the nation's press, and he took a couple of tough questions, one of them about the recent seeming inconsistencies with the story that the administration's been telling versus what the facts, as reported by the whistleblowers last week, in the new information being put forward from Benghazi. Take a listen.
With respect to Benghazi, we've now seen this argument that's been made by some folks, primarily up on Capitol Hill, for months now. And I've just got to say, here's what we know. Americans died in Benghazi. What we also know is clearly they were not in a position where they were adequately protected.
Mm-hmm. We know that.
The day after it happened, I acknowledged that this was an act of terrorism.
No, you didn't.
And what I pledged to the American people was that we would find out what happened, we would make sure that it did not happen again, and we would make sure that we held accountable those who had perpetrated this terrible crime. And
I don't know about that.
That's exactly what we've been trying to do. And over the last several months, there was a review board headed by two distinguished Americans, Mike Mullen and Tom.
All right. And so then he goes into this long litany of all the things that he's done. Here's the problem, though. In evidently the testimony that was given last week before the committee, chaired by California Republican Darrell Issa, that a bunch of that stuff that he just said didn't really come close to being true. And that is a problem, because he didn't call it an act of terrorism. He said that all acts of terror should be punished, but he was very careful not to call the attack on Benghazi the day after an act of terrorism. He was very careful to avoid that, even 5 weeks later, when going on the what's the show with the shrews? I'm sorry, The View. When he went on The View, he said no, it's too early to tell. And my problem, friend, is this. It's been too early to tell from the day it happened, too early to tell that night, too early to tell the next day, too early to tell a week later when Susan Rice went on all the TV shows and said it was a video, it was a video, it was a video, it was a video, it was a video. Is that 5? Yeah, okay. It was a video. And meanwhile, the number 2 in Libya, the one that took over for Ambassador Chris Stevens after Ambassador Chris Stevens met his very untimely death in this entire tragedy. The number 2 said, we told them that night that it was an attack by al-Qaeda terrorists. We knew that night. The Libyan president, who had just been seated, went on one of the Sunday shows that Susan Rice was on, and she basically contradicted him, because he said, we knew this wasn't. We know this isn't some spontaneous thing. People in Libya didn't even know about the video that night. And then Susan Rice comes on, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, guess what? Probably that little move, that little chess move by Susan Rice, probably kept our investigators from being able to secure the site for a good little while, because I don't think that the president of a sovereign country who came on to tell us his perspective about this really appreciated being told he was full of baloney when asked. So what we have seen here in this kind of pulling back of the veil that we got last week with the committees in Washington, D.C., was a real telling of the truth, and the president is still using the same talking points. Everything he just said is the same thing he said in the debate with the presidential candidates. It's the same thing that he has said frequently. And it's funny, because in that statement that I just played for you, he says, well, you know, we're trying to get to the bottom of it. This is what we've done. We've attempted to do this. Jay Carney said last week to the press corps in the White House, Benghazi's old news. It's old news. You guys need to move on. You shouldn't be talking about this now. The headlines today, by the way, don't look particularly any better for the president, because it appears that there may very well be some more whistleblowers headed to the witness stand in pretty short order. So, Calvin McCullough with you. It's AFA Today. It's our midday check of what's going on in news that affects the family. I really do appreciate the fact that the president took the question. I'm still very dissatisfied in his joint news conference today with Mr. Cameron. I'm still very dissatisfied with the answers, because we're not getting anything different. By the way, there was another story that happened over the weekend. I don't know if you caught it on Friday, but the IRS confirmed that it had basically built an enemies list. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, the IRS campaign to apply additional scrutiny to conservative groups went beyond just targeting Tea Party and Patriot groups to include those focused on government spending. The additional guidelines created by the agency were part of a timeline obtained by Fox News from the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, which is looking at into the controversial IRS practice. Though the officials apologized on Friday for the scrutiny, but new information suggests senior leaders were apprised of the effort as early as 2011, despite public denials from the top. Now, wait a minute. What's this? Wait a minute. What's all this? From the top of the Treasury Department? Oh, that would be the Secretary of Treasury, right? That's a cabinet position, right? That's tied directly to the administration, right? So we have... Oh, and by the way, the president addressed that today. He was thoroughly disgusted and appalled, and he showed outrage. It was very. You could tell he was. He said he was very upset. He did. He said he was very upset. I don't know if he was very upset, but he said he was very upset, and he said it in a pretty upset manner. So maybe he really was upset. Let's just take a peek at how that sounded as well, because I want you to see just how upset he was.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask about the IRS and Benghazi. When did you first learn that the IRS was targeting conservative political groups? Do you feel that the IRS has betrayed the public's trust, and what do you think the repercussions for these actions should be? And on Benghazi, newly public emails show that the White House and the State Department appear to have been more closely involved with the crafting of the talking points on the attack than first acknowledged.
Yep.
Do you think the White House misled the public about its role in shaping the talking points? And do you stand by your administration's assertions that the talking points were not purposely changed to downplay the prospects of terrorism?
That's the Associated Press,
Prime Minister
by the way.
Cameron, on Syria, if the EU arms embargo that you mentioned is amended or lapses, is it your intention to send the Syrian opposition forces weapons, and are you encouraging President Obama to take the same step? Thank you.
All right, Treasury. Here we go.
Well, let me take the IRS situation first. I first learned about it from the same news reports that I think most people learned about this. I think it was on Friday.
Okay.
And this.
By the way, I'm going to pause it right there.
If
Does anybody believe that to be true? 888. Help me with the phone number. 589-8840. I knew that. 888-589-8840. Yeah, put that on my screen if we can. 888-589-8840. Does anybody believe that? Does anybody believe that the president, he gets home from a long week of work, he's chilling out in the White House, maybe he shot some hoops, he comes in, he's all sweaty, because he's been playing basketball. He picks up the remote, turns on the TV. There's Fox News. Yeah, I'm sure it's just like popped right up onto the. I'm sure that Fox News is just exactly what it popped right onto, and they're saying, here's the Here's the latest from the IRS. They've confessed to eavesdropping on conservative groups, and I bet he was just drinking his Gatorade or whatever, and he just spit all over the White House because he was so shocked by that he heard about it the first time. Do you believe that? I find it a little bit. I find it a little bit intriguing. I find it a little bit incredible. That's really the first time he could have, they didn't have any warning that the news was getting leaked at all. Nobody called the White House and said, we're about to run a story on the IRS targeting your political opponents. You might want to think about making a statement. Do you have anything to say? Does anybody believe that? 888-589-8840. Anyway, here's the rest of his answer on the IRS manipulation issue.
IRS personnel engaged in the kind of practices that have been reported on and were intentionally targeting conservative groups, then that's outrageous. And there's no place for it. And
outrageous, he says.
They have to be held fully accountable because the IRS, as an independent agency, requires absolute integrity, and people have to have confidence that they're applying it in a nonpartisan way.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what he's saying. I honestly do. I think people, it's very much to the government's advantage to believe that the IRS does operate with integrity, but I'm sorry. It's just it strikes me as funny. Maybe I'm more cynical than normal today. I don't mean to be. Anyway, 888-589-8840. I really want to hear more than anything. I want to hear what you have to say about this. So let's go to the phones, and let's start with line 3, Jim calling from Florida. Jim, welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to AFA Today on AFR Talk. It's Kevin McCullough. Glad you're with us.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
And I just have to tell you that on the 12th of September, there was a picture of what happened in Benghazi with pictures of people that anybody in that part of the world would recognize. How come they didn't go after them?
Well, we weren't allowed. Part of the problem, Jim, is we weren't allowed to get into the country after we dishonored the Libyan president. After we kind of said he was lying on Sunday television talk shows, they didn't really cooperate with us to let our FBI guys in there quite as fast. They felt offended. They felt a little bit offended that we called them liars on our news media.
But don't you think that it is also very, very unusual that even at this late date that they can't take and see who those people were?
Jim, not only that, does anybody find it the least bit incredible that the only person that's in prison right now from the Benghazi affair is the man who made the video that turns out had nothing to do with it? That's the part that kind of stabs me through the heart. Thank you, Jim, for your call. Let's go to line 1, Clara. Okay, well, let's take this break, and we'll be right back. Clara and Jan and more that are calling. We'll get to all of you before we're done. It is AFA Today. It's kind of the midday gathering of what's going on in the news that it affects the family at the American Family Association, and we're glad that you're with us. Kevin McCullough is my name. I also am heard a little bit later on some of these stations as well, or in the early mornings, so I hope that you'll check out that broadcast as well. Anyway, we've got a lot of other news to get to yet today. There's some stuff happening in California and other places that you need to know about, so we'll get to all of that when we continue here on AFA Today on AFR Talk.